Good morning. Which buttons do I press? Oh, wait. This one. Hello. Okay. Let's get our chat up. I see I don't have chat up. Pop out chat. Put chat there. Pop out chat. Yeah, let's just make sure everything looks fine. Okay, Twitch looks fine. YouTube is behind like 20 minutes. Okay, but it's okay. Okay, cool. Ah, OBS, are you gonna be like this today? Okay, everybody. I'm still waking up, so excuse me. But let's get into this. Okay, we can jump into the to-do list first. Now, I don't even think Yeah. I didn't actually do any of this stuff yesterday. I started... Oh, wait, yes. Totems have passive effect. So we kind of got this working, right? The visual, at least. So we just have to get the code actually going to actually apply the buffs and debuffs to the character. Right? And what's also going to be a good idea, I feel like, especially for totems, is to give them a health bar. And the reason I think that's a good idea is because the totems, they have a lot of HP. Right, and if you think about it, it's going to be kind of shitty if you're hitting this totem to get rid of a buff or a debuff, and you're not able to really tell how far you've progressed at all, right? And because it's a risky thing to do, right? If you're standing in the debuff zone, trying to get rid of whatever it is, it might be risky for you. So I think it's a good idea to show you the health bar just so you can have an idea of what it is actually, or how you are doing. Sure. Okay, so I think that's also a good idea. Yeah, let's go to our time tracker. Let's just get this thing going. I'm still waking up, by the way, so excuse me, but okay, we just do all of this with the... Okay, that's fine. It's all part of the same thing. Hey, we almost got a new owl, by the way. If you wanted to know, new owl is incoming. Okay, so this was just me and my wife playing with this yesterday. I wanted to show her what it does. And you can actually see I just made a quick mock level, right? Be like, hey, this could be one of our levels, right? Like level 1. Just like it. It's gonna take a while. I can tell. But anyway, yeah, we just played around, made like a level 1, which is, I mean, I put some grass over here. I put a little stone wall. I put some. Right, I just tried to show her what's possible technically, right? Okay, what the idea would be. Okay, but anyway, let's get into one of these totem prefabs. Okay, and let's go look at what we have to work with, right? So we have this area effects script, right? Where, yes, okay. Let's open up my scripts. Look at that, just to change the color and stuff. Oh, my word. Today's going to be a long day. Anyway, so let's think about this. Okay, so we have the scriptable object. And I think, wait, why can't I? Is my keyboard broken? What? Guys, there's something wrong here. Okay. Ah, thank goodness. Okay, so we can have a public float. Let's just call this the debuff. Or the effect. Strength. Right, this is going to be some kind of a percentage. So this would be the amount by which our effect, whichever one it is, increases or decreases any one of these, right? Okay, and it's just going to be like a percentage, right? Like 20% or something like that, I think. Yeah. Okay. Okay, what's the next thing we need to do? Okay, so let's see. Okay, so our area of effect works technically, right? We have this for the character debuff working, right? So you remember we say if it's a character debuff and player is in effect in the effect area, we will actually apply the debuff. Okay? And let's see, what do we say here? Totem area effect transform. Okay, so that's just to get the, like, kind of the range. Well, this is to get the range. This is to get what kind of effect it is. That's the radius of the debuff. And then I think the last thing we need is the effect is o.debuff. Not debuff. Effect strength. Right, so we get effect strength as well. So let's just go to apply debuff. Hello. Okay, so when we apply the debuff, we also get a float. Let's call it debuff. Strength. Or maybe we have debuff strength there. And then we just do strength. And we just say that is debuff strength. Okay. just something like that. We don't actually need these anymore. So let's just get them out of here. Okay, so we have a debuff strength, so now we have to apply the debuff in some way. Right, so this is good, I guess. Okay, so where we do this, I think, is going to have to be in Character Stat Manager. Right, Character Stat Manager needs to take into consideration potential buffs or debuffs to the character. Right, because if for instance, because a lot of things hook into this right now, right? So for instance, the get damage function. There's 7 places where we actually ask, how much damage are we going to do? Including there. So when we get damage, we can get the stat total, that's fine. But we should multiply that by our buff or debuff. That makes sense. So we can have our buff. So we can do get public, and let's return a float. Get debuff amount, let's say. Okay, and let's see. Okay, so what do we... So let's return it with a totem area effect SO dot totem area effect. Right. And let's call it the debuff. Okay. Oh, well. Yeah, and then we can say if debuff is equal to okay, we want to check if it's equal to this debuff. Okay, so we need to apply the debuff over there. Private we'll just call this an area effect. And then we can say this, we call this the debuff. Okay. And then right here we can say debuff equals area effect, right? And we can say, okay, look, if our debuff is equal to area effect, then we can return 1 minus our debuff strength. Okay. Otherwise, we just return 1. Okay. So effectively what we're going to say is our stat manager will just ask, it'll say get debuff amount, for instance, and we'll multiply whatever stat I have by the debuff amount and which one I need. Right, and if my area effect that I am applying to myself is equal to the debuff, well, if the area effect I'm looking for, the relevant one, is equal to my debuff, we just return 1 minus the debuff strength. Otherwise, we just return 1. Okay. And then in Character Stat Manager, we just need to figure out where this is relevant. Okay, so get stat total. We could do it there, I guess, for damage. But let's see how this works, right? So it returns upgrade character data dictionary, stat name, plus that thing with the stat name. And you see, this is kind of now interesting. So maybe instead of the type of debuff, I should have applied a stat name instead. Because then I could kind of just make this thing work with stat name. Right? Instead of the type of debuff. So call these stat names instead. The stat that it affects. And then it could also be a good idea to have all characters, enemies and playable characters, obviously, use stats the same way. Why is OBS over there? What is OBS even doing? Okay. Does that make sense? I think that is probably the best way of doing this. So in that case, if this just has a stat, okay, so the only thing we need to do is okay. So there's one small little thing that might get a bit awkward. And that is the fact that what if I want to make it a little bit different? Well, I guess I could have multiple types still. And then just change these strength values, right? Yeah, that could be useful. Because in the character stat manager could over here just go to character debuff, run a function with the stat name that it gets. Right, we don't have to interfere over like here. And whenever we get a get stat total, and that'll help even with things like attack speed, because then it just works already. It'll help with crit chance. You can use armor. Yeah, I think that's the way I need to do this. I think so. Okay, so let's go look at our stat SO, right? Yeah, so this is all the stats that we can have. So we'll just use a stat SO stat name instead. Or we could just add a stat name as well. So our totem area effect could look like that, but then we can also have a public stat so.stat name and just call it the stat or we can just call it like something like the affected stat, right? Let's just assume. Okay, so let's do that, and then we don't necessarily change this, but maybe we do. Affected stat. Yeah, and affected stat with this is character debuff should already be enough. Yeah, because now what we can do is inside of our character debuff, We don't actually care about the area effect. Yeah, all we actually care about is the stat. So we can do stat so.stat name. And we can call this the affected stat. Or, you know what, let's just call this the stat name. Right? And then we can call this one. So we take the same thing, we copy it over here, but then we call it the affected stat. Right, something like that. And then our affected stat is just the stat name. And then over here, what we do is we say, okay, look, if our affected stat, or no, if our stat, literally this again, actually. And then we can do if our stat name is equal to our affected stat, we do something about it, right? So many things will try and query this, but only some of them will return a value that actually changes or affects our stat in any way. Right, so this is going to change now. So we don't need a totem area effect. You know what? In fact, I mean, all of this stuff could kind of stay here. All we need here is effect so.stat affected stat, right? We don't even need all this other nonsense. Yeah, like none of this. Actually makes any difference. Yeah, we don't need this, and we don't need this. Right, it's already inside of our effect SO, so why would we do that? Okay, we can still set the colors and all that good stuff. But yeah. So now we got the affected stat. We got the totem, the debuff radius, and then the stat strength. Okay, cool. And now in our character debuff, we just return that amount, which means inside of our character stat manager, when we get the stat total, we can just take all of this, right? So we add up all our stats and we multiply it by. Okay, this is going to be interesting. So what we actually need is a serialize field private character debuff. Let's call it character debuff. So we multiply all of this by character debuff dot get debuff amount, and we insert the stat name. Okay, there we go. So we add the two together and then we multiply it by our debuff amount. So it's quite a serious one over there. We should actually just call this not a debuff even necessarily. Because maybe we have things that buff the characters as well. Well, okay, maybe we want to apply both. So that could also be the case. So we might want to say, look, sometimes we have a debuff and a buff working against one another, but still we have both, right? Yeah, so we need to keep that in mind. Yeah, we'll have to figure out how exactly they interact with one another, though. Are they multiplicative or additive? Yeah. But that's not a problem I have to figure out now. Maybe one day I can. Okay. I feel like they should be additive. Yeah. Okay, but now technically, whenever we call get stat total, which we do very often, so all our things, our wisdom, our health, our movement speed, our life steal amount, our regen, dodge chance, critical chance, damage, all these things need to get stat totals. Okay. Okay, so the only thing that we need to do if, for instance, sometimes, even if we update the stat over here, so let's get one, for instance, like the movement speed, right? So get movement speed gets run, and that's great. Add apply stats for active character. And that's fantastic, but the problem with that is, if we have one that slows, that'll mean that it applies the movement speed once at the start and then never again. Right, so we need to do something about that. We need some way to, when a character gets changed or whatever, we need to change this, alright? Where am I even? Player manager, player movement, set movement stats. Okay. Okay, yeah, so the player manager should in some way get notified that, listen, we have entered into a debuff zone. And you should just maybe check and apply our stats again. Right? Okay, so we'll think about that. Okay, some of them it won't matter. I'm thinking specifically of stats like damage, right? Because every time we do damage, we ask this to tell us how much damage we do. Right. Yeah, I think only movement speed works like this. Oh, maybe attack speed as well, actually. Yeah, it's possible that attack speed works the same way. Okay, so maybe inside characters. So we apply attack speed over here. And we call this... apply stats active character. Oh, okay. So it's the same one. It's also in... Okay, so we just actually need to run this function. Apply character stats. Where is this thing run from? Start next level button, apply character stats. Okay, cool. But this is public, so apply character stats. Yeah, we can just run this. And it gets it from the stat manager every time, and the stat manager should know what it is. So in our character debuff, we could say something like debuff applied, or when we apply the debuff, we could say here at the end, we can do player manager dot instance dot apply character stats, right? So you can run it there, and then right here when we switch it off, we can apply it again, right? So let's just see. we should also do and debuff applied, right? Because remember, when I set the debuff to some stat, I'm not changing it until a new debuff is applied, right? But I am changing this boolean to say that it's true or false, right? So if over here, if I ever move out of it, it'll become false, and that means when we apply the character stats again, it'll come here, ask it how much, it'll return 1. Okay, I think so that should work for the most part. Let's try it. Okay, so some of my scriptable objects are probably a bit broken. So let's just go see. Okay, not broken necessarily, but we need to figure this out. So affected stat damage. This is increased enemy damage by, let's say, 50. 0.5. Well, this one won't do anything, right? Same with enemy movement speed. Even if we do 0.2, it's not going to do anything. Only the player stuff does anything. Okay, so we are affecting damage. We reduce player damage. Let's reduce player damage by 0.5 or 50%. Okay. And then this one is player movement speed, so we need to change movement speed. Let's see, 0.5, right? That seems reasonable. Okay, so let's feel it. See if this works. So as soon as I move in, it should apply the slow. As soon as I move out, it should remove it. So let's take the duck. Okay, we got a couple of problems here. Let's see. Oh, I know what we got. Yeah, so in our character, our base character, obviously we got this, the stat manager now needs to know about the debuff thing. Okay, now this should work. Yeah, because it's trying to calculate movement speed and whatnot, but yeah. Okay. Oh, geez. Okay. Okay, so 50%. Okay, I see now there's... That area is a little bit misleading. Yeah, that feels kind of bad. Okay, let's try that again with like the Robin. Oh, okay, Okay, so obviously she can... I wanted to see the damage one, but now I keep getting the wrong... No! I flippin' died. Ah, come on, man. Just put me on one of the other levels. Oh my word, what the hell? Oh, this is interesting. It's broken. Why would that have happened now? Right, because obviously I move into it, but it doesn't affect me now. Okay, I don't know why that would be the case. Okay, so for some reason we keep getting this level, which is kind of annoying. Just make the gizmos go away. What is happening here now? Okay, so we got the totem. It is... Yeah, actually, I don't understand that. Huh. Very interesting. Yeah, look, the knight just doesn't care now. Okay, can we go to another level, please? Oh my word. Okay, so the knight is interesting. Now it works. Okay, I'm just gonna switch off this level because I want to actually be able to test everything and not just the slow. Okay, so obviously the slow does its thing. Okay, this one doesn't slow, but it reduces my damage, right? Yeah. So I only do 5 damage there. But if I fight over here, I do 10 damage, right? Okay. And this will work against enemies, yeah. Okay, yeah, so this slow is a bit too much, right? Also, we should change the animation speed when we change the slow as well. Yeah, because it kind of looks a bit shit when he runs at full speed, but he doesn't actually move. All right, so we can think about that. Okay. Another problem I have is this seems to be a little bit too much. So 20% might be a little bit more decent, reasonable. Some word like that. I mean, if I like, okay, let's take the duck again. Let's see. Okay, now for some reason I don't get a movement speed decrease. No, I do. Okay, yeah, no, I do get him. No, I don't. Ach, yeah. So why would that be? So let's go to our apply character stats, right? Let's have this thing tell me what's happening. So whenever we go here, we want to do... Okay, this thing is... Yeah, okay. So we do a debug.log apply character stats. Okay. Like that. Okay, yeah, we apply it at the start, obviously. Then we apply it when we enter. Apply it when we exit. Okay, so maybe the effect strength is not high enough. Okay. Okay, that's better. Let's also change the radius for these a little bit, right? So currently, I think the visual effect needs to be a little bit bigger than the actual effect, right? So if we go into one of these totems, for instance, we'll see. Okay, we obviously have a debuff radius, etc. Okay, we apply the effect SO, but let's just go in here and let's just see. Okay, so when we add, okay, this is just changing the gradient, but I want to check the scale, the shape or the size, the radius. Okay, so what if we multiply this by 1.1, for instance? So just that little bit bigger, right? Like an extra. Let's make it 0.5. Let's make it 5% bigger, right? And my reasoning behind this is that then it'll actually... It won't seem like you are not even in the area yet, but you're already getting debuffed, right? Because that feels bad, right? You don't want that. You want to only get debuffed when you are definitely in the area and when you can see and tell that you are actually in the area. Okay, so let's do that again. Okay, so now... Yeah, I mean... Still not quite there. And this guy's just a monster. Okay, so it's not quite there. Do we make it 10%? Or 15% bigger? It kind of seems a bit... This just changes the effects, right? Yeah. Yeah, I can see. Okay, no, yeah, something is weird here. Okay, let's see if we can't make this better. Okay, so somehow this effect radius is not really... It's not doing the right thing entirely, right? So some of my scaling is not so lacquer. Okay, wait, let's try this again. And let me just play with these effects a little bit. Right. Okay, let's go to my actual scene. Okay, let's switch on the gizmos again. Okay, so over here, it kind of looks okay, but also not quite. Like, the yellow one is particularly bad. Yes, like it changes depending on your camera angle, your zoom level. What the hell? Okay, apparently that's what they all do. So this particular angle, that's such a weird way to behave effect. What the hell? So let's see which totem is. Okay, that is this totem over here. Okay, this bubbling thing seems to be okay. I mean, the ground cover technically seems to be the right size, but it's just not quite doing it. Wonder what that's about. So yeah, okay, so the scale is 23. So if I increase or decrease the scale, it seems like it's got some kind of a maximum at about 23. Yeah, but if I make it like exactly, you can clearly see. Yeah, so it's not quite filling the circle. Okay, so that is probably something to do with my effect itself. So let's just see. Let's go to the totem that we are editing. Okay, so there's a couple of things we should go and change. So first of all, I see it's changing with my zoom level. I don't know if that's something we can change here. It's a horizontal billboard, that's okay. Sort mode. Yeah, I have no idea what any of this is. Okay, but I definitely don't want this to happen, right? Like you can see how when I zoom in and out, it actually changes the scale. So I'm just confused why that is the case. That doesn't make any sense to me. Culling mode. Don't know what that is. Okay, wait, let's make this thing more visible. Yeah, now why is it happening? Why is it doing this? I assume this is something to do with the billboard. The way the billboard tries to work. Okay, so now it's obviously showing stretched billboard, horizontal billboard, which is what I want. Okay. Should definitely not change. Oh, wow. Why is my billboard doing this? Can anybody explain this to me? Like, I can obviously tweak this so it works, but why when I zoom in does it go smaller? Okay, now it doesn't. Okay, obviously because I made it 3.6. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Or, well, if it makes sense, I just don't understand it. Hey, this guy. How are you doing today? I'm doing well. I'm just struggling with weirdness on the visual effects side. So this visual effect, right? This circle that I have. You're bored of work. Okay, you can help me. Why would it do this? Like if I zoom in, you can see the circle, the billboard becomes smaller based on my view level. Which is weird. Right? That's weird. Okay, let's see if this looks better. I just scaled it a little bit. Now, my problem is, so these effect circles. Yeah, look, this is the issue, right? You can't see it there. Some of them are bigger than the effect radius, right? Because that gizmo is the effect radius. And then others render smaller than the effect radius. And I have no clue why they scale like that. Like, what is affecting that? And look, when I run around, you can see, obviously, with my camera angle changing, this one gets smaller. Like, look, the closer I get, they kind of shrink. And that's obviously very confusing to the player because you don't have your visual to know where the hell the effect will be applied. I have no idea why this effect is doing that. Like, and you can see it just by zooming in inside of the inspector. It does that. That is so weird. I'm assuming it's some kind of a tick box here, but it's a strange one, you know. I thought it might be in the renderer, right? Yeah, I thought it was the billboard. But surely you can just switch this off, right? Well, if I set it to just billboard, right, it does that. Which is bad. Right, I guess I could make it seem like it's the right position. Yeah, like if I rotate it, I suppose maybe I can get it. No, yeah, you see, you can't even fix it by rotating it correctly because it's always gonna clip. That's why I went with horizontal billboard, right? Because then it at least does that on the floor. Stretched billboard. Well, I don't know if billboard with a pivot. Wow. Okay. Okay, that just moves it up and down. Okay, I see. Or forwards and backwards. I don't know what allow roll is. Max particle size 1. No, that still does the thing. It's so interesting. We get vertical billboard. I mean, that's obviously not going to work. We can do a mesh. I mean, if you make it a sphere, I suppose we could get somewhere, but it's a bit weird. I don't think a sphere would do this. Yeah, no, it doesn't. A plane or a helicopter? You mean the mesh? That sounds amazing. Yeah, I mean, I could do it with a mesh, I guess. Like, you could technically do a cylinder mesh, right? Technically. What are you typing there? Like a... It looks like a beta prime. I don't know. Do you mean like I should make the mesh just a plane, or... like one of these planes? I mean, it could work. Right, maybe we can now have it orientated correctly. Okay, let's see. How do we orientate this plane? Render alignment local. Right, so we could do a plane like that. And then this plane, we can technically then... I think we just pivot it, right? We change our pivot 0.5, or no, 0, negative 0.5, yeah, so something like that. That looks terrible. Why is it so bad? How is that not the center? Apparently that is the center. Okay, but anyway, and now if we scale it to the size we want it. So I don't know why start size is like 33 already. So this plane is a bit small or something. Like, how big do I have to make this before it gets... It's like 110 for some reason. That's pretty interesting. Don't even start with shaders, man. I am not at that level yet. Okay, but technically if we restart this now, it should... Like, it does show... Now, I don't know what this looks like. Let's play it. Let's just see. Yeah, I really want to use shaders. Like, it's a cool idea, but I can't. I don't know how to use them yet. It's a learning curve I haven't ventured into. Okay, yeah, so this does something. Let's just... It doesn't seem like they're changing size, right? So that's good. So the billboard changed the size. So now at least the sizes are consistent. And they are consistently completely oversized, right? But that's okay. At least they are the size I want them to be. Why can't I see my... my AoE gizmo in this view? Doesn't make any sense. I should be drawing that gizmo. Okay, but so I think if we make this ground just 100. And I think I should take out this. Yeah, maybe we don't scale it here. Maybe we just scale it in the inspector. I don't understand why my gizmos aren't showing now. For crying out loud. Like, I have them tick. Not that one. Yeah, man. Normally there are a million gizmos when I'm in. Okay, so when I exit that, I can see the gizmo. Okay, that's very interesting. Anyway. So let's just go in here. Okay, so obviously it's a little bit too small still. So if we make this 115, so 115%. That seems like it's getting to the right size. We can check the other totems. Right, that'll at least seem like it's the right size as well. Okay, let's play it. Let's run around to give it a feel. Okay, but now we can see. Yeah, okay, that's a bit better, right? Now it's worse with the smaller circles. Okay, I think I know why. Okay, so I don't want to necessarily scale it the way I did now. Right, so I scaled this. Let's just make that a 100. I don't know why it's off by a factor of 100, right? Something is weird here. But anyway, what I'd rather scale is that. Make that 15% larger. So let's just put this in here. Okay, let's see. If it applies more consistently. So that looks good. I mean, yeah, at least they all... Yeah, I can work with that. Yeah, so as soon as you go in there, you slow. As soon as you're in here, you do less damage. Okay, if you're in here, nothing happens because it's a buff area for the frogs, right? Okay, so the slow is cool and everything, but we really need to change our animation speeds to match our movement speeds. Similar to how we did with our enemies, in fact. Okay, and I think we also need to switch off the effects when you kill the totem, obviously, right? That seems reasonable. Okay, so let's see. Okay, this is an interesting one. No, it's not that interesting, actually. It's quite straightforward. For the player, at least. Okay, so for the player, we apply the debuff, right? And then we can just have a remove buff, or remove debuff as well. Something like that. Right. So public void remove. Remove debuff. Okay, and all we really need to do. Hey, Brody. Good morning. Are you sort of here? Ah, that's Kwai. That's cool, man. It's cool. That's the perfect amount of here that you need to be. Okay. So I guess all we need to do is make a debuff. Debuff applied equals false, right? So if we remove the debuff, we just make that false. And we apply character stats. I think so. Okay, so let's see. So remove debuff. That should be pretty straightforward. So basically in here, we want to have a function called... well, let's just call it disable area effect, right? And what we want to do is these two particle systems need to stop. So bubble effect dot stop, right? And ground effect dot stop. Then we should also do player manager dot instance dot get selected character. Yeah, we basically want to do all of this stuff. So we're getting the component, and then inside there we all remove a debuff, right? Just like that. So whenever the totem gets destroyed, we can remove the debuff from the player. I think so. Yeah, and I don't think we're going to have it so that you have multiple debuffs applied yet. But obviously, if we wanted to do that, we can. Right, it's not impossible. Okay, but I'm okay with that. So disable area effect, and basically when we have to go to the enemy building manager, right? And at destroy totem, okay, we need a serialize field. Private. This is gonna be enemy building area effects. Okay, and we're just gonna do on destroy totem area effects dot disable area effect. Right, and we should probably have one that just enables the area effect as well. So public void enable area effects. Okay, so these two we need to switch on. Start. Oh, dot play, not start. Play. Okay, so we just play those two. Dot play. Okay, cool. Anything else we need to do? I don't think so. I think we're there. Okay, we just need to plug in that area effect over there. And then we should be ready to go. Well, okay, so we should be able to destroy a totem and then the effect goes away, right? So let's see if that works. Okay, so our duck ninja, he runs in here, he's super slow, right? So I destroy it. Okay, so the slow goes away and the AoE fades slowly. Okay, but at least... Okay, this one reduces my damage. Okay, but I destroy it and it will fade over time. Okay, cool. Okay, so we might want a way to restore them, potentially. Okay, but yeah. Okay, so it fades very slowly, the rings. Okay, so this thing can't slow you when you're doing your spinning attack. Okay, and there we go, and we sorted again. Okay, now I think we should fix the animations, right, so they look better. Okay, so how do we do that? I did a bunch of calculations for the enemies, so I guess I'm gonna have to do something similar for the characters, right? Yeah, so each character, well, each enemy, I don't know if you remember this, Let's see if I remember this. Yeah, so I have this Z delta from animation, time delta from animation. And I use those in a calculation. Right, so this one, for instance. Move speed multiplier is not equal to 0. So then our movement speed is equal to this. So it was always, we have a multiplier obviously as well. Yeah, so we have a movement speed and a movement speed multiplier. I can't exactly remember why we have two of those. I think the multiplier is so that I could tweak the movement speed. For the characters though, basically this is going to be required. The multiplier is used to actually make them move faster, right? So we could do something very similar to this. So let's see. And yeah, so the movement speed multiplier. Yeah, okay, so the base movement speed is determined by the animation. Then from there, the movement speed multiplier changes both your actual movement speed and your... Yeah, so that's going to be an interesting one. I don't think we have the characters using a multiplier, if I'm not mistaken. So let's go check it out. Okay, we can add this. Okay, stats that can't change, kind of there, right? Z delta from animation and then time delta from animation. So we need to get those two numbers. Yeah, and then our movement speed basically be set to that. Just so that the animations don't look weird, right? Currently our movement speed... Yeah, it is just a number. It's not a percentage or anything like that. We don't increase or decrease movement speed by a percentage amount. But we should maybe. Yeah, so we should have a base movement speed that's pretty much calculated by our from the animation. And then from there, we can speed up the animation or slow it down based on the actual movement speed number. Okay, let's try that. Let's just use like the chicken as our guinea pig here. So if we look at the chicken and we go to the animation for running, actually, no, this is the other thing that's going to happen. It's going to be different depending on whether we run or walk. Yeah, that's an interesting problem. Okay, but what we can do here, right, if you look at the chicken, and you do the walking animation, you can see he moves a set amount, right? So during his walk animation, he moves 5 units over 16 frames. Right, now what you can do then is you can go into the character data for the chicken and set that number. Where the hell is that number now? Did I not save this? Oh, jeez, I'm tired today. Okay, so... yeah, okay. Z delta from animation is 5. This is 16 over 30. Right, because it's 16 frames. What just happened? Okay, but yeah, so we need runs. Yeah, he moves by 5.009 units over 16 frames at 30 frames per second, right? So, okay, so that's how you calculate his movement speed. So that's going to be quite fast, right? So if you just take that and you compare it to the normal movement speed, so let's just see how this works out, right? So normally we had him moving at 8, right? So that would be 8 units per second effectively. But now he's going to go 5 divided by 0.533333, which is 9.375 units. Based on the animation. Right, now what we can do is we can actually stick with the movement speed being that, and then use these two numbers to get a multiplier to get the actual animation speed to match that instead. Right, and I'm okay with that idea. So we could do, we can calculate a private float move speed multiplier. Well, we can call it the run animation multiplier, for instance. Okay, and we can calculate that on start, let's say. So run animation multiplier would be equal to our Z delta divided by time delta, right? So it's going to be Z delta from animation over time delta from animation, right? That gives you the units per second that he moves at. Okay, but we want him to move at his actual movement speed. So if we do move speed divided by that quantity, so 10, so we do 8 divided by our 9 point whatever. So this would be something like 0.85, okay? To get the base run animation multiplier, okay? And then, okay, so all the characters should have something like this now, and they should be able to calculate this at start, but the run animation multiplier could change dynamically, right? It's a quantity that doesn't really stay that way. So let's think about how we want to go about this. So we have it at start. We could just have a yeah, let's, instead of doing that, let's just do public float get run animation multiplier. Right, and let's okay, let's think about this. So get run animation multiplier should effectively do something like this calculation, right? Okay, do we want this calculation to be done here? Now, movement speed is something that can be changed. So technically we don't want to use just this movement speed, right? Yeah. So perhaps this is something we do. We have those two things, right? Oh, geez, I'm breaking so many stuff. Okay, let's just leave that there. Maybe we put this in character stat manager, right? So here where we have, let's see, attack speed, critical chance, damage, dodge, health, lifesteal, movement speed. We can have something else here. We can have a public float. Float. Get, run, or get, move, animation, speed, multiplier. Right. And what we return is the following. So we want to get our get move speed, right? So we get what our actual movement speed is. And we divide that by our character data dot z. Okay, so these things are not public. Okay, z delta from animation over character data dot time delta from animation, right? So something like that. So get move animation speed multiplier would get you whatever the movement speed is at this point divided by those quantities so that we can at least make sure that the animation keeps up with the actual movement speed, right? Okay. And what we want to do now is in our animator for the character, which I think is also just straightforwardly the same thing. Okay, we want to change the parameter. We want to create a parameter for all of our animators. Okay, this is the night. Yeah, so we need a parameter here, and it's going to be basically not a lot, well, a float, move, animation speed, and what we want is our run animation to have a multiplier move animation speed, right? Yeah. Okay, and we need to set this up for basically all the characters. Right, so the knight, the ranger, move animation speed, the running. I might want to change this for all of them, but for walking and stuff like that as well. But for now, let's see if we can get away with just doing the running. Okay, and then the running one. Hey, Patiently Curious on YouTube. How's it going, man? Let's see, what are you asking me? Looks really cool. Well, you're not seeing much, are you? But thanks anyway. I don't know how long you've been here. Maybe you've seen quite a few things. Yeah, thanks, man. What is it like to be a Game dev in South Africa. Well, I don't know. It's probably the same as anywhere else in the world. Look, it's not like I'm doing this full time. It is 4:30 in the AM after all, in the morning. So, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to make it work, right? But it's one of those things. After hours. Okay. So all my running animations should be multiplied by whatever that animation speed is now. So in my animator, what I can do here is I can have a new parameter. So we can just private const string move speed move animation speed, something like that. Right, something like this. And then we can just have a public void set move animation speed. Oh my word. Okay, and we want animator dot set float move animation speed to okay, we want to actually put it in here, I guess. Yeah, float okay, so we plug it in there. Move animation speed. There we go. Okay, so this should help us. Now we just need to call that function in the correct places, right? So yeah, so this is not required anymore, which means this breaks, and that's all good. Okay. So let's see. When do we actually apply that? So obviously, apply character stats changes our move speed, right? Yeah, set movement stats, for instance. So when we set the movement stats in our player movement, okay, so we could do it all here. We get the active character game object, so maybe we can do active character dot get component. So let's see, how do we do this? Character animator. Wait, would that work? If I get the component of my active character, would it work? Let's just see. I think it should. So let's say we get this one. Right, there's no character animator right here, but I assume that it can go through the children and get this character animator. So maybe we just do get component in children character animator, and then we just do set move animation speed, and we need to give it a number. Okay, so this is kind of annoying because that we get through here, and we get it by get. Okay, let's see, what is this thing called in the character stat? Yeah, get move animation speed multiplier. Okay, and it gets the movement speed and all that stuff. Okay. This is quite a lot, but anyway. Okay. That is quite a massive... Damn. Okay, I'll just let that be what it is. You know what? Maybe not a bad idea would be just locally do this. Character stat manager equals stat manager. No, man, what am I doing? Character stat manager equals active character get component stat manager, right? Because I'm doing this multiple times now. Okay, so we get the stat manager, and then we can just do stat manager dot apply attack speed. Yeah, we can just say stat manager get movement speed, and then here we can just say stat manager get move animation speed multiplier. Yeah, I fixed it, right? It's much better now. It's not a lot of get components anymore. It's only a few. But yeah, I agree. It was a bit rough. Anyway, so now we actually just get the stat manager, and then we can apply all the stuff once. Yeah, there's probably... I'm probably doing something stupid here. Maybe we could just, in the stat manager, actually tell it to, instead of get, we just tell it to set. And then this doesn't return anything, it's just a void. And then what it does is it just gets the animator. Okay, so it doesn't have any reference to the animator. I don't think. Let's see, character manager dot animator dot set. Yeah, and we can calculate that here. But effectively, it calculates it and sets it straight away. So we just have set move animation multiplier. So then our player manager doesn't actually need to do any of this. Okay, let's just see. Set So stat manager dot set move animation speed multiplier. There we go. That's a little bit better, right? Okay, so we just set the move animation speed multiplier like that. Whenever we want to apply the stats for the active character. I think so. Let's see. Let's see if that works. Okay, so only the chicken currently can do this. The other characters will break. Jeez, what the hell? Oh, it's compiling. Give it a minute. Okay. Yeah, so I only entered something for the chicken. Yeah, so if we go to our data, yeah, only the chicken has something here. What we can do for now, well, we don't have to. But if we make these 1 1 1 1 1-1, then at least it won't give me an error. But that's obviously not correct. So let's just play with the chicken quickly. Let's see if our movement speed is now dynamically changing, and if our animation speeds are actually okay. I think that looks fine. That is interesting, right? I think that looks great. Yeah, and as soon as we kill it, we go fast again, and the animation speeds up. That is so much better. Right, this is the type of polish that's gonna make my game a massive success. Okay, let's check all of the characters. Let's see how they run. Okay, so the ranger runs, she moves 4.04 in 16. Ooh. Okay, 4.04 in 16 frames. Okay, so let's go in there. Character data. So we got 4.04 in 16/30. Okay. But since we multiplied by movement speed, it should be okay. This is just correcting it. Okay, and I think we should just revert. Yeah. Okay, so that's that one. Let's see the wizard. Mr. Wizard, run for me. Run, Mr. Wizard. Okay, he runs 5.9 in 16 frames. Wow, okay. That's quite a stride you have there. Okay, so 5.9 in 16/30. Okay, we just revert and revert. I just want to see. Yeah, okay, it's the same thing. Okay, and then finally our duck ninja. Duck ninja, run for me. You run, just like it's 7.46. Makes sense though. He is quite quick in 16 seconds. Okay, or 16 frames. So we just corrected 7.46 in 16/30. And there we go. There we go. I just have to revert. Okay, so if we play it, we should be able to get all the characters move pretty well. Oh, damn. Okay, so if we click on the Duck Ninja now. Okay. We'll get to the totem. And there we go. Now I can go fast again. Okay. Yeah, so we could potentially do the same thing for the walking animations, but I feel like they don't look as bad, right? It was primarily the running animations that you could clearly see is something's wrong. Let's actually see if you're inside here and you hit something. Oh my word. 12 damage, huh? He does half damage. Even to things outside, yeah, because he's inside. Now he should do full damage again. Yep. Okay. I'm not afraid of being slowed. I'm used to it. Okay. Doing some interesting things here, guys, I think. I think we're doing some interesting things here. Cool. So what's next? Well, I think we need to figure out how the hell this works for the enemies now. Right, so it works pretty nicely for the characters. Now we just need to figure out how to change this to work for the enemies in the same way. Okay, so fortunately, we obviously refactored the enemies, so there's a base enemy now, which theoretically, if I can figure out how to apply it here, it should just automatically work for all the other ones, right? Now, the enemies don't have complicated things like inventories and things like that. So everything just comes straight from enemy data. Right, I obviously have the Z delta and time delta thing going on. Right, which calculates our movement speed when the game starts, right? So we can just straight up change. Okay. Yeah, okay. We need to, we'll have to rejig this a little, but yeah, we can just change the movement speed multiplier. Yeah, that's kind of bad, right? I don't like the way I did this. So let's go into enemy data. Let's fix it up. Right, so what I did was I did it this way, where actually I should want to set a movement speed. Right, and then the movement speed multiplier is obviously a thing that can exist, but it's not something that I change to try and balance the characters. So what would be better is if I use a similar type of calculation to what I do here, where I use my movement speed and I divide it by the Z delta, time delta quantity to change the multiplier instead. Right, so it would be better if we do it like this. So we say move speed multiplier equals my movement speed divided by this Z delta quantity, right? Yeah. So now, instead of me changing my multiplier, I just set my movement speed to whatever I want it to be, and my multiplier will be updated so that everything works accordingly. Right, so now my animations and my movement speed should all be nice and synced. Well, that is if I actually change my animation speeds to suit my movement speed. Yeah, so I need to take the multiplier and apply it to my animation speed, right? So we can make this one a hide in inspector, just so I don't have the urge to try and change the movement speed multiplier for the characters, the enemies, I mean. Okay, so that's okay. Okay, so let's see how I did this for like the simple melee enemy, right? So we have the lizard over here. And let's open the animator. Oh, okay, I already have the movement speed multiplier in here for the run animation. Great stuff. So I've done this already. That should probably mean that in my animator, I have a function to set my movement speed multiplier. Okay. We just get it at the start, so we set it at the start, but we should also have a function, I think, public void set move animation. I hate that I call these things different numbers every single time. Okay, but this can effectively just do that, right? And we can just call this at start. Okay. And most enemies will just use the enemy animator anyway. So this should work out for us. Okay, now the next thing is just getting this to now apply. So I think what we're going to do is we're just going to add a script. So we're going to go somewhere to our characters, script stuff. Scripts, enemies. Oh, I was already in the right place. Basic enemy scripts. Create a new script. So this would be enemy buff. Buffs. Wait, did I call it character debuffs or just character buff? Yeah, no, I dropped the S. Okay. Yeah, this might break it, but anyway. Hey, cheers, this guy. Have a good afternoon if I don't see you again. I'm probably going to be around for another like 2 hours, so you might find me, yeah? Okay, so how do enemy buffs apply? Okay, so enemy buffs will have to handle this somewhat similarly to how we handle the character debuff, right? So the character debuff, the idea here is there's an apply debuff, so we'll have something like an apply buff function that runs. And then it does a bunch of things, obviously, but yeah, we need to keep track of... this is going to be interesting because... Okay, for the character, obviously, it's very straightforward to apply the buff, right? If the character moves into the area, it's not a problem. We can see the character is there. We can apply it. And then when we have to remove it, it's also not really a problem because we know there's only one character active in the level. But enemies are a bit different, right? So we need to be careful there. We can only add or remove the status effect. Yeah. Okay, so this is going to be interesting. So we could do this in a couple of ways. So one of the first ways I could think of is, okay, so if we have our totem area effect, so let's see, enemy building area effect, right? So we could obviously have a check sphere, similar to this one, which obviously doesn't check for players, but checks for enemies, right? And that's okay. And then it can just basically, maybe not even just a check sphere, it could be a physics, what's the other one called? I can't remember, but it's the one that gets a list of colliders, right? So we can check all the enemies inside of the collider, and then we can apply the buff. The problem is when they exit the area, right? So they might walk into the buff area, get buffed, and then when they exit the buff area, we want them to lose the buff. Right, so how are we going to do this? Especially because some of the enemies are very fast, right? So, for instance, the Komodo dragon, for instance. Or specifically the Komodo dragon. He can jump. And it is possible that he jumps so fast that we kind of miss the update on fixed update. And then you don't actually lose the buff on him. Right, so if we want the totem to manage this exclusively, we might run into some problems, right? Another way, then the other thing we can do, obviously, is we can say, okay, cool, if we apply the buff to all the enemies in the area, we can then say, okay, cool, tell that enemy a couple of things, right? Like, where the totem is, what kind of buff it is, etc., and the totem's range. And then we can do a similar thing to what we do with the character and then make the enemy responsible for removing the buff. So then the enemy can calculate how far it is, and then when it's far enough, it removes the buff. Okay, so we're going to try something like that. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have a... this is going to be a collider array. Collider array. And this will be enemies in AoE, right? Equals, so we're gonna go physics dot, I think it's overlap sphere in this case, right? And we're gonna do many of the same things. So it's gonna be transform dot position, debuff, and debuff, well, buff radius in this case, not debuff radius. Let's call it the effect radius. Right? Okay, so we get our effect radius. Okay, so what this thing will do, it'll return all enemy or all character. Yeah. So let's do this as well. So we get another layer mask, and we call this one the enemy layer. Right, and we just have to get the enemy layer mask.get. I think it's called, do I call it enemies? I don't actually know. What do I call my layers? Okay, can somebody tell me? Just enemy. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, so we just want the enemy layer. Okay, so we get the enemy layer, and then over here, what we can do is just do enemy layer, right? Okay, cool. So we get all the colliders, and then we can simply do a for each collider. Okay. So we go through all of them, and then basically what we want is we want c.gameObject. So we want to get the game object of the parent of the enemy. And what we want to do is get component of type enemy buff. Right? Okay, so we want to run a function, obviously, but inside enemy buff. So the function we're going to run is a public void apply enemy buff. Okay, and this is going to be very similar to character debuff in many ways. So we apply the buff, we get a bunch of stuff. Okay, that's for something else. And then here we say, this is where we check whether or not the debuff should still be active, or the buff should still be active, right? So we just apply it, and then we kind of stop. So we're still going to get the, and this is important, so we'll still get the collisions, right? Even this one, it'll check if it's true. Yeah, so this one, I think I kind of did it a bit differently, so it doesn't continuously do this. Yeah, play in effect area. So it can track whether or not the player is still in the effect area and not continuously check for collisions. But for enemies, we can't do that, right? Because there's too many of them. We can't keep track of it over here. The best we could do is when we apply the buff, we can just say, look, on fixed update, we try to apply a buff, and if there's already a buff applied, we don't have to do it again, but we still have to kind of check, right? The only other way we could do this is if we like switch off the collider or something like that, so it doesn't even collide in the first place. But that is kind of hard, because if you switch off the collider, then obviously a bunch of other things won't work. Yeah. So this might not be the most effective thing in the world, but I'm just gonna pretend like it is. And we'll go from there, right? So apply enemy buff. What do we need from this thing in terms of... Let's just move all of this over there. Okay. So the enemy buff, it'll need a... let's say a transform. Transfer function. Just a transform totem. Right. It will also need a... yeah, something like an effect radius and the affected stat or something like this. Totem area effect, for instance, is another thing we can add here. Well, we can, okay, so let's do that. Let's call this the effect. We need the totem, the effect, and then we need a float effect radius. Okay, I think oh, we need effect strength as well. Another one, float strength. Righto. Okay, so we get all these things. I don't like just calling that strength. Okay, and we set a couple of things. So the first thing we need is a private, just a transform. I call it a buff. Totem private totem area effect so dot totem area effect. Let's just call this the buff, and then we can have a private float buff radius. Were my genade. Can I struggle less with typing? Okay, and then we'll also need private float buff. Oh. I just had a thought. Unity kind of gave me a thought right now with one of those autocompletes. This might be better. What if enemies... Okay, so yeah, this could solve a little bit of my problem. So what if enemies get buffed for some amount of time instead of getting buffed indefinitely? Right, so the character, as long as you are in the buff area, you get applied the buff. And as soon as you move out, you lose it. But what if enemies get to have a buff applied for a time? So what that would do is, if an enemy walks through an area, right, they get applied the buff, and then they keep the buff for some amount of time, and then they lose it. So we don't actually have to calculate. Yeah, I like that. So instead of having like an effect radius, we have a effect duration. Right, and the idea with this would be that we don't really care how far you are from the totem, so we don't have to calculate the distance to the totem. We just have to keep a timer running to ensure. Oh, and then remove the effect after some amount of time. Yeah. I like that. So we can also have a private float flamethrower damage, really. Float. Just call it a buff timer in this case. We can also do private boolean is buffed. Right, and then the first thing we can do, we can check if is buffed is, false. So that means we are not buffed. The first thing we should do is we should make it true. So we apply the buff. Okay. Then we can do buff timer equals effect duration. Right. Buff strength equals effect strength. Buff duration is not strength. That is also effect duration. Okay, so we set those to the same thing. Yeah, then we actually don't even need the totem, to be honest, because why would that be necessary? Yeah, we don't need that. We just need to know what buff to apply, the duration, the strength, the timer. Yeah. And whether or not we are buffed. So if we are not buffed, we can get buffed. If we are buffed, well, we're not getting buffed. Right. So just something like that. Okay, now we just need to apply the buff to the enemy. Right, so inside enemy data, let's see how some of this works. So the damage and stuff like that, I don't think... Okay, so here we have a movement speed multiplier, which I think is the thing we're going to go and change. Maybe not. Well, we need to change that, so we can do public void set move speed multiplier. Right, we do something like that. Set move speed multiplier. And then whenever we set the movement speed multiplier, we also want okay, so we could do this. That is just how you set the move speed multiplier. And yeah, we actually just need to do that. Let's just check. Okay, so that's how you set the move speed. And then in the enemy animator, we obviously do this at start as well, which might be bad. But anyway, we get move speed so set move speed multipliers coming from there. Move animation multiplier, yeah. Okay, this thing has access to enemy data, right? So you could technically plug in a event so that every time we change our move speed, this thing can fire as well, instead of just firing it at start. Yeah, let's do that. Public event. Event handler on move speed changed. Okay, so whenever we change our movement speed, okay, we do on move speed change, invoke this. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. So when we run set move multiply, that happens, and we do that on awake, and then inside of our enemy animator, we can do enemy data dot on move speed changed plus equals. What am I doing? Plus equals tab enter, and basically we just want this in here now. Right. So anytime we change our movement speed, we change that. And then I just want to see how enemy movement actually does that. Ooh. Okay, so we have basic enemy movement, and then we have the other enemy movement. So let's just look at that. So enemy movement basic has an agent, and I think, yeah, so on start we set it equal to our movement speed, right? On start, so that's how. Okay, let's see, do we use movement speed anywhere else? Okay, is far from player. Okay, that one is fine. Okay, so we don't use that anywhere else. But now, okay, so our speed is also a little bit different for the different enemies. So let's just check here. Okay, do we change our agent's speed here? Yes, we do. We set it equal to movement speed, which is just getting from enemy data. Do we use movement speed for anything else? No, we don't. So technically I could get rid of that for the tank enemy entirely, right? Because the agent speed is set in the basic movement. Yeah, so I could realistically just delete that, and it won't make a difference because we still have basic movement managing that. Okay, crocodile boss enemy. Let's see, it also gets the agent. It enables it, stops it, and all that good stuff, which is okay. It never sets the speed, and well, it asks what the speed is, but it never sets the speed. That's good. So the crocodile won't break anything. Ranged bomber enemy movement. Okay, so it also gets the agent. It stops it, enables it, checks the speed, but that's it. It doesn't do anything else. Okay, so we can, in enemy movement speed basic, basically do this, right? So at start we set this, but we can also have a function changing our movement speed here. Yeah. So we could easily have a public void set agent move speed. And we could just do agent.speed equals something. Typically we'll go with enemy data dot or manage this thing, right? Okay, so what we can do actually is on start, we could just do data dot on move speed changed plus equal tab enter, and we could just do this nonsense over there. There we go. Okay, so whenever the movement speed changes now, yeah, we'll set the agent speed and we set the animation. Okay, so now we just need to figure out how this is going to change in enemy data. Right, so in enemy data, okay, so let's see. We set the movement speed, right? The movement speed multiplier is actually the thing that a lot of these things use. So when we set movement speed multiplier, for instance. Okay, so let's see. So basically, do we want to do set movement speed multiplier? Do we want to change our movement speed? How exactly? Like, I'm just thinking about movement speed right now, not even damage yet. It would be kind of cool if I had a consistent way of doing all this nonsense. But I'm not very consistent when it comes to how I code the enemies versus the characters, it seems. Yeah, okay, so for the character movement speed, let's just go look at that again. So for the character movement speed, obviously we have this whole character stat manager thing, right? That does a lot of stuff, right? So we have this function which sets the animation movement speed, but the get movement speed, when we need that, right, we can obviously just call this get stat total. And it just takes our movement speed and then multiplies it by something. Right, and I think that's the difference here. We access it a little bit differently. And the debuff, yeah, so now always when you try to get your movement speed, it's always multiplied by some kind of a debuff. Yeah. So what I should do is I should maybe inside of the enemy, we should have a public. Let's return a float and we can call it get buff amount, right? And we should kind of give it an effect, right, like this. And we should first ask if we are buffed. If is buffed. And if effect equals the buff. Right, so if we are actually checking the buff that we want, we can return 1 plus our buff strength. Okay, otherwise we return 1, or here we return 1. Right? Does that make sense? Okay, so we check if we are buffed. We checked if the effect we want is in fact the buff we have, and then we just return it. Okay, like that. Okay, so then in enemy data, okay, so we have a function that actually applies or updates or something like that. So we should, after buff, maybe in enemy manager or in enemy data for that matter, we should also have a function that applies a buff, right? So let's think how we would do that. Okay, we can either do it here, or we could just do it over here, technically, inside of enemy buff. So we could also do, so apply enemy buff, that's fine. And then we could say, we could just have, okay, if we are not buffed, we apply the buff, right? So we could just do, so let's think about this. We could just do a switch case over here. Effect. Right. And then we do case. Case. Totem. Area effect is totem area effect dot increase enemy movement. I never remember how to... Is it like this? Oh, it's like that. Oh, yes. And we need it. Okay. Okay. So for this case, what do we want to do? So increase enemy movement. We basically want to do enemy data, for instance. So let's just add our serialized field enemy. Whoopsie, enemy data. So let's think about this. We want to do enemy data dot move speed equals. Yeah, so we could do something like that. So let's just say 5, for instance. Break. And then we have... Okay, this is obviously not correct, but just let me cook. So this could be increase enemy damage. So those are the two things that it could do. So we don't do this necessarily. We just let it apply it straight to the enemy data, for instance. So the only thing I can think this would break, yeah, it's gonna break something, right? Because now the movement speed is, the base movement speed is gonna change, and not just a new movement speed, right? Yeah, so we need to make sure we don't break it, because we want to return it back to the original movement speed. So inside enemy data, maybe we have yeah, because we reference the movement speed quite often. And then we have the move speed multiplier, obviously. Now, if this was a property, yeah, we basically want something. We want it to be a property now. So private m underscore movement speed, and then we can make it serialized field, right? Okay, and then we have a public float move speed. And then we have a set, for instance. Okay, so something like this could happen, but now when we return movement speed, we might return movement speed along with, let's say, get buff amount. Right, that is something we could do. So enemy data doesn't necessarily just do movement speed, it returns movement speed multiplied by, you know, private enemy buff. Just call it enemy buff. Right, so your movement speed is equal to enemy buff dot get buff amount, and the effect we want is increase enemy movement, right? So if we return, whenever we want movement speed, we return this. That should be good. Now, okay, so that's one way we could do this, I guess. So we never just return the vanilla movement speed. We always check movement speed. And this is kind of what I do with the characters as well. So we return the base movement speed, which is something I could have set somewhere else. We return that base movement speed multiplied by whatever my buff amount is for enemy movement speed. Now, if we don't have a buff amount, we just return the movement speed straight. Okay, so then we have our multiplier, which would be our movement speed with the buff effect active. Multiplied by this, and we do something like that. Now, this is an interesting one. So set movement speed multiplier. Okay. We could potentially have this run every time we do this, but that seems excessive. Okay, so we could, when we apply the buff, right, we could do enemy data dot set move speed multiplier, right? We could just run that function just to make sure the multiplier gets updated as well. Okay, so then when that happens, on move speed changed should then so let's think. This should then be invoked when a buff is applied. And it's not going to do anything if... Yeah, it won't make a difference if the buff wasn't actually for movement speed, but it should still check it. I don't like what I'm doing here. Will it work? Possibly. Is it good? Not entirely. Yeah, so I have on movement speed changed here. And then that sets our movement speed multiplier from enemy data. Right, and that's okay. Because that would be updated, right? And technically then also on the animator side, no, that's the animator side. On the enemy basic movement, when that changes, our speed will change based on the movement speed. The movement speed is obviously based on with the buff. Right. And our speed and stuff will only now... Okay, so and this would all be triggered. This is triggered when the buff is applied for movement speed. Now, if the buff isn't actually a movement speed buff, it'll just return 1, so nothing is going to change. Yeah, I'm not a massive fan of that, but because I could do this a little bit differently. So what I could do is in enemy data, instead of set move speed multiplier, this could just be something that I do when a buff is applied. Okay. Okay, we still need to have this work. But okay. So let's see. So we get our buff gets applied. So if we are buffed, if we are not buffed, we can get buffed. Right? We reset our buff timer and all that good stuff, right? So on update, we should then run a timer, right? So if is buffed, right? So if we are buffed, this timer will run. And so if we are buffed, our buff timer would decrease by time.delta time, right? And if our buff timer is less than 0, oh, actually, yeah, we don't actually need the buff duration. We don't count up, we count down. Right, so we just count down to 0, so we don't need a buff duration. We just need the effect duration to set it up to some value. But yeah, then we go down, and if buff timer is less than 0, then is buffed equals false. Right, so we go to false, and we should run something like enemy data dot not set move multiplier, but just something like remove buff. Because what I'm thinking is the enemy data. Let's just see. Enemy data. So this gets run when we apply a buff, right? And it changes our multiplier. And then it runs. So yeah, so maybe we have a public void add buff. And we also have a public void remove buff. Okay, so doesn't really matter what buff it is. We just need to make sure we do all the things that could happen with a buff. Yeah, so this doesn't make any sense to me anymore. We can set this over here. Okay, so we add a buff, we remove a buff. Okay, so adding a buff does that. Removing a buff should do basically the same thing. So this could just be like on buff change type of thing. So just change buff. Right? Instead. So we don't remove buff, we just change buff. So in buff, we can just do change buff and change buff. So when we change the buff, so when we apply buff, we change buff, right? So that'll change the movement speed and all that good stuff. And then when we remove the buff, we change the buff, right? And then it'll actually get so let's just call this on buff change instead. So on buff change, we will invoke it. One of the things we need to do when a buff changes is just recalculate our movement speed. Send the on buff change event. That will let our animator know, hey, something changed. Let's just check if we are still in line. It'll also let our movement know, hey, something changed. Let's just make sure we are still updated. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Okay, so apply enemy buff. This will obviously be ran by our totem. So totem, no, not this one. Enemy building area effect, right? So apply enemy buff is still not right, obviously. But what we also need is totem area effect. So we need public float effect duration. Okay, and then inside our building, we'll just need to do a couple of things, right? So we need the buff effect when we want to apply the buff. So in this case, the buff effect would be effect SO dot totem area effect. Okay, and then effect SO dot effect duration, and then finally effect SO dot effect strength. Okay, that's pretty much it. So we apply this to all the enemies that are inside of the collider. Okay, but obviously, so we run apply enemy buff, and when we get here, it first checks, look, are we already buffed? If we are, don't even do anything. If we are not buffed, we can change ourselves to buff. We can add a effect duration, a strength, etc, etc. Okay. And we can let the enemy data know, look, the buff has been changed. Then from there, no more buffs can be applied, but we can always get the buff amount if we need it for some reason. So obviously it's a percentage amount. So we can get the buff amount if we need. We can also remove the buff after some amount of time. Right, so let's just save. And let's go back to Unity, actually. Whoop. Okay, Unity is compiling. Okay. So let's go look at our level, I guess. Oh, you know what I want to look at? I want to look at my area effect. So increase enemy damage right now has an effect duration. So let's make like 5 seconds. Increase movement speed. Let's make that like 5 seconds as well. So it's going to get a 20% increase in movement speed. Okay. Player damage does not have a duration. Right? These ones don't actually work like that. And also the affected stat doesn't actually have a difference for the character, right? For enemies, because it's not a character debuff. Okay. It's going to be a bit hard to see. So let's make the movement speed, a lot. 1.5. Now, this is ridiculous, obviously, but we'll very easily notice a 1.5 change in speed. Okay, I don't even remember which one is. Okay, now we have a new problem here. What the hell, man? Okay, what just happened? Okay. Oh, our enemies don't actually. I didn't give them all the stuff they need. Yeah, so I need to add enemy buff, right? So that needs to get added, and then enemy data needs to know about you, and I think you need to. So yeah, they need to know about each other, like that. Okay, let's try that again. See if we get less of these null reference exception errors. Yes, we get less of them. Let's take the duck. Okay, cool. Now that's still bad. I don't know why that's not happening. Okay, it also seems like my enemies are not moving at all. Interesting. Okay, so you there. Ranged bomber enemy guy. What's up? Now, I would guess... the flippin' level ended. Okay. So, there's probably a couple of stuff happening here. One of the first things I could think about is that... okay. So they're not moving, obviously. So they're not getting the movement speed they wanted. So let's go to character data. Okay, it's entirely possible that the movement speed set back to 0. So I should go check that when I change that. And I think that might be it. The base movement is nothing. So that's probably my issue. My other issue is my totems are bad. Okay, so this totem effect radius is 0. For some reason, that got reset. I guess I did something. Okay. Well. Just make them all like 10 for now. Let's actually the enemy movement. Let's make this one like not 50, 20. Okay, so that would be the green one. Okay, so that's one thing that I did. And then the other thing is I think all the enemy movements were set back to 0. Yeah, enemy data, move speed, yeah. Let's give you like 8 or something. I can't remember exactly what they were. Okay, bomber. It's like 6. Komodo. Also like 6, he's not really fast, he just jumps very fast. And then the crocodile. 8, I guess, is fine. Okay, let's try that again. Let's see what they do. Okay, so the first thing. Okay, my effect areas are back. And they still work, right? So I still get slowed. Hey, look at that guy. Just like it. Look how quick they are. Okay, so this is kind of interesting. You're not playing an attack animation for some reason. Or a movement animation. Interestingly, they're not really that fast. Okay. Okay, let's pause. Let's click on you. Okay, how fast are you moving right now? What is your agent's speed? It's set to 8, even though you're inside this area. And you? Agent's speed is set to 6. So it was not updated, in fact. Okay, so let's see why that is the case. Okay, so do they even move fast? No, they don't. Okay, so our basic movement, on movement change, we should get our movement speed again. And since they are inside the buff should be active. Okay, so the buff effect for each collider in gate game object, enemy buff, apply enemy buff. That should be working. Why is it not working? Huh. Looking for overlap sphere enemies. It's not a character buff. Okay. Let's do this. Apply buff. Let's just do debug.log. Apply enemy buff. We'll just do our debug log bug finding. The other thing I want to change is I just want to get rid of all these enemies. So in my level manager, okay, we're only on the main level. the first one. Okay, on the spawn manager, enemies per 5 seconds. Let's make it 0.0001. It's a very small amount. And then we can just activate this guy, for instance, right? Yeah, let's just activate him. It seems like some of the stuff was doing what it was supposed to, but not everything did what it was supposed to. Okay, we have one guy. Okay. Apply character stats. Okay, no, that's just mine. Okay, so here's the one problem. I can see that the animations don't work. Now, as soon as I get in here, apply enemy buff gets called, which changes the animation. But it doesn't, for some reason, change the actual speed. Right, but the okay, so if we pause here and we look at the animator for this enemy... so yeah, so the movement speed multiplier is set 1.3. Okay, and our enemy data, however, movement speed's just 8, which is the base movement speed, I guess, which is okay because the buff is temporary, right? And the buff did say it was applied, but if you look at the nav mesh agent, it also just has a speed of 8. Okay, but the apply enemy buff happened, right? So the next thing we can check... Okay, so there's another problem here. I think one of the problems is in our animator. So we can just check here. On start, so we can do this, right? On start as well. We can do it on start and then do it whenever we have an event fire as well. Okay, so the next problem is our enemy movement basic doesn't seem to want to change, even though it did it does get... So the agent's speed is being set whenever on buff change, right? Let's just enemy data dot on buff change. So I'm gonna move my print statement to here. Okay, so now I want to see if this is actually being fired and then if my movement is being updated, right? So we set it at start, which is good, but then, you know, we should be setting it again when we move into the buff area. Right, so let's have a go. Let us have a go. Okay. So he runs, he gets in there, apply enemy buff. Okay, and then if we run out, he should lose the buff eventually. Yeah, they loses it after 5 seconds. Okay, so the only issue I have is that it's not actually changing the movement speed of that enemy, because if you go to the nav mesh agent, he's still moving at 8, which is his original movement speed. That is interesting. Why would that be the case? Manager enemy data movement speed. Okay, that I don't care about. Unless he changes... Does he change his movement speed himself? I don't think he does. Ooh, no, he does. Well, okay, he just gets the agent and he just stops and Yeah, okay, no, that's not a problem. Huh. This is a very peculiar issue. Okay, so what if we returned this value? Right, I want to see him return that value to me. So it shouldn't be 8 exactly, right? When the buff is applied. When it's removed, it should be 8. So I should see different numbers here. Right? Theoretically. And the buff is very strong. We should see him smoking it every time he moves into the buff area. But it doesn't seem like he does, which is interesting. Okay, let's just take the ranger, why not? Okay, he just gets 8 as the movement speed. Very interesting. Okay, so this number is just 8. So that must mean my enemy data is not doing something right. Okay, so when we return movement speed, we return our movement speed multiplied by this amount. We do increase enemy movement, so we get buff amount, increase enemy movement. So then enemy buff, we come here and we like, okay, get buff amount, and you're asking us for the enemy movement, right? Which I suspect was set. Ah, no, we didn't set it. Ah, damn it. Whoopsie. Okay. So, buff must be equal to effect. Yeah, we never set the buff. That's the problem. Okay. I think I can actually remove all this statement over here. We can save it, and we should clearly see this guy just motoring when he gets into the buff area. Okay, let's give it a go. And go to level prep. Let's take the ninja because he's quick. Let's see if he can. It's like, oh no, he's super fast. He just becomes the Flash. And he really struggles to hit me, doesn't he? Okay. So he becomes the Flash. That's interesting. Cool. Let's enable enemy spawning again. Let's just make it like one enemy every 5 seconds. Just want to see this happen. Okay, but it works now. Small little bug. Small little bug. Yeah, let's say we play as the ranger. Okay, so obviously that happens. So you can get rid of that. Who else? Wait, did nothing else spawn? No. No, man. But I changed the spawning again. Okay, there they come. Oh, geez, these frogs. Like, I can't even get to them. This is kind of funny. Okay, so don't fight when they buffed like that. Okay, let's check the owl. So what are you going to do about this? Well, the obvious answer is just destroy the totem, right? Because, yeah, we can't be dealing with these super fast enemies. Get rid of that totem. Okay, actually, do they still get buffed now? Ah, they still get buffed. Okay, so the totem doesn't get destroyed entirely. Okay, but that's pretty interesting, though. Yeah, so how does that work for the enemy? I think... in enemy building manager, we do a disable area effect. Okay, we stop the effects, we remove the debuff, but we should also do something like a private void, private not void boolean is effect active. Okay, false, and then on start we can say is effect active is equal to true, and then over here we can say is effect active equals false, and we can only apply if the effect is active. There we go. Okay, pretty much just something like that, because obviously the enemies will have the benefit of the effect until it's removed or they die. Right, so let's see if we can't. So movement speed 1.5 times is a bit too much. Let's make them 20% faster, right? Let's try it now. It's more reasonable. Okay, but you should still clearly notice a little bit of a speed up. Yeah, and if I pause it and I click on any one of these enemies, I should be able to go down to my nav mesh agent and see 20% more speed. Okay, fantastic. And I can destroy this totem to get rid of the effect. Okay, you can clearly see some of them are buffed, some of them might not be. Okay, but now they can never get buffed again. Ha ha ha! Take that. Okay, so the Duck Ninja is obviously not going to have a problem here because this is a deactivated totem. The frogs look funny now. Because I scaled their movement. Yeah, they're either too fast, but obviously... Oh no! Yeah, don't go in there. Yeah, that's dangerous. Okay, yeah. So the frogs now look a bit funny because they move. The animation speed is now linked to the actual move speed. And they're not supposed to move that fast, I don't think. So, yeah. The frogs are going to look a bit funny. We could make them slower. right? They don't have to be that fast. And that'll help already. They're not very fast to start with, but let's... Oh no, that's their damage, right? Yeah, okay, let's make their move speed even slower. Cool. I'm gonna take a quick break, use the restroom, get some more coffee, and I'll be right back. Let me do that. And okay, 2 minutes. I have returned. Let's just do that. Woody. Okay, what were we doing? Wait, I did do that right, didn't I? I think so. Yes, it seems like I am not muted. Good. Okay. So we got the slowdown, reduce damage, speed up effects, and now I want to do a damage increase effect. I'm probably gonna... I can already tell that I might get to a point where I might refactor this stuff. Because it feels a little bit sloppy, I'm not gonna lie. So the enemy buff, okay, obviously it does work though, so it's not that big a problem. But anyway, it doesn't quite do what I don't know if it's perfectly scalable, right? It seems a little bit meh, to be honest, but yeah, we'll see. Okay, but at least Okay, so when we change buff, we change the movement speed multiplier. Okay, now damage. Let's see how damage works. Right, so the enemy damage, obviously that's a number that I put in there. Okay. And this number, yeah, I think if I want to apply buffs and stuff to this, they either all need to be properties, or I need to have like the stats be managed like a stat manager. Right? That just seems like the way I need to go. Because damage is applied. Well, I mean, I don't actually know how it's applied because each enemy is a little bit different. Right, so this enemy, as long as they don't get their damage, yeah, if they do this, I'm fine. If they get the damage like that, it's not a problem. The problem would be is if I set the damage at start. That would be a problem. I don't think I do that, and the reason I don't do that is because of the way the enemies would get stronger as the level progressed. But I don't know if I actually do that anymore. So let's see the range bomber enemy. So there's nothing funny here. So when he throws the bomb, so there's an attack trigger. It does that. So this obviously then goes to an animator to actually throw the bomb. Right, so right here somewhere, spawn bomb. Right, so we have a bomb spawner. And the bomb spawner gets the damage from the enemy data. So you see, this is the type of consistency that if I was this consistent all the time, it's going to make it much easier for me, right? Now, I don't know if I was, but I'm going to assume that I was. And what I'm effectively just going to do is make this a property. Right, so we literally going to do serialize field private, this guy. All right. And we're going to make it a M underscore damage. And then somewhere here, we'll have the property. So it's going to be public float damage. And since we name it the same thing, this should already be working. And we can also set damage. What the? Oh, I need to. This thing's confused because. Okay. And then we can set M underscore damage equals to value. Right, so it's just a straightforward one, nothing fancy. But effectively what we do now here again is we add to whenever we want to get the damage, we get the damage, but we also get it with the increase damage effect or increase enemy damage. And now this should basically work, right? Because we get the damage maybe in different places, but every time we try to do damage, we query the enemy data. Yo, how much damage should we actually be doing right now? And it tells us this much, and that's perfect, right? Now, movement speed's a little bit different, right? We couldn't realistically ask the enemy data every frame. How fast should I be moving right now? That doesn't make any sense, right? We set the agent speed. So we just need to make sure that we set it every time. Okay, but this should work already because that's the way I coded it. Okay, so let's see. So the damage. So we can look at the scriptable object and see how much damage they should be doing. And then we can test it, right? So let's just go. Let's just close some of this audio asset stuff. It kind of makes everything difficult to see. Okay, so in our increase enemy damage, 50%, let's make it 2. So then it's 3 times. So it's 200%, so 3 times the damage. Let's play. 2 seconds. Okay, no, 5 seconds duration. So it's going to be quite rough. But we should be able to see this fairly easily. This is a red one, right? Okay, so it's going to be over here. So any enemy coming through this area should be doing a lot of damage, right? So let's see. Okay, so they both... Okay, they do 0 damage. That is very interesting. Okay, so let's get to debugging. Okay, so we get the damage. So we return M. Oh, it's because because I changed it, it went back to 0. That's it. I did the same with the movement speed. So we need to go into each character data or enemy data and just make it like a number again. So he had 5 damage previously. The small melee enemies had, I think, 1 damage. Then our Komodos did like 10 or 15. I don't really know. It doesn't matter. Our Crocodile did like 35, right? Yeah, obviously these numbers need to be balanced still. It's not like that's just gonna be what it is. But yeah, for now. These are roughly the numbers I'm aiming towards. Now, apparently that was a massive change, so. Okay. Duck. Let's see how quickly you die. Let's see how quickly the duck perishes. Okay, so they do 3.5 times the damage. That's not the amount of damage I thought they'd do. Oh wait, don't I have armor or something. Yeah, I have negative armor, okay. Who doesn't have any armor? Owl. Okay. Let's go with the owl. This should just be straight damage, no funny business. Okay, so hit me there, it's 1 damage. Hit me there, it's 3. Well, yeah, no, what did I just do? Okay, and then those guys, when they get in there, I can't see how much damage they do, but they should do more than 5, right? Doesn't seem like they do more than 5, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, so when we spawn the bomb, let's look at the bombs. You know what? Let's go to our enemy spawner. And let's just make this 0.5. And let's switch on the bomber. Right. He should have 5 damage. Let's just go see what he does without any other interferences. Wizard, because then we can see the pure damage number. Okay, so that's clearly 3 damage. That's still 5. Okay, Frog, why are you still doing 5 damage? Okay, let's see. We have a projectile, a bomb, flying at us. Explosion sphere size. Okay, we don't see the damage. Well, maybe we can. Put on debug. Bomb damage 15. Okay, so there it is. 15 damage, right? So that is definitely multiplied by 3. But now, as soon as it exploded... Oh, okay, no, it did do 15. Yeah, okay. Okay, so now it does work. I think what it might have been is something to do with the cooldown of the frogs. Or something like that. Like, they take longer to throw a bomb than they actually... than the buff actually lasts or something like that. Yeah, maybe that's the case, right? I don't know. Okay, cool. So we got enemy damage working. Nice. So we got some of the basic ones going, right? So they can do more damage, they can move faster. We do less damage, or we move slower. Now those are the main ones I think we need. We might... I don't really know what else. Oh, hey, Mr. Human Limits. How's it going, man? I don't think you... Why are you quoting me like that? So, I have a weapon, a bomb flying at us. Did I say that? I don't remember. I don't think I said that. I think you're making it up. That is fake news. It's good to know that you are good. I'm also swell. Okay. So let's go to our tick boxes and let's tick some tick boxes. Where the hell's our tick boxes? Okay, here we go. So we can safely say in our to-do list that we've done passive effects. So they do debuff or slow the player. They buff the enemies. Oh, and we need a health bar for the totem, right? That's a good idea. Because I am good, thank you, Mr. Human Limits. This is a good idea because obviously now there's an incentive to try and get rid of these, right? Obviously, you could just stay away from them because the area of effect won't be, that big necessarily. But if you want to kill them, it would be nice if you could actually see how much work you still have to do. Right, so I think I did this a long time ago. So adding like a health bar on top of these things. I think you add something like you add to it a canvas, right? So that's always like the first thing. I think actually I have no idea. Yeah, I think if I just add a image or a panel, yeah, it adds the canvas. Anyway, which totem am I looking at right now? Whoa. Whoa. Okay, I have no idea. Okay, this is because, yeah, it's because the canvas is massive, right? So, let's see. This should be a world space canvas. I don't remember how to make it. Okay, here we go. World space canvas. Okay. Camera. Don't know what that means either. Canvas scaler. I have no idea what I'm doing. What is happening here? Oh, there's many totems. That's what's happening here. Okay. Yeah, okay, so, oh, jeez. I need to figure this out. I'm not going to figure it out. Let me go into my tutorial project and see how the hell I did this. Because I don't remember at all. I did this once, maybe like 3 times in a tutorial 6 months ago. Don't have any idea how I got there. I don't think it's that difficult. I just need to figure it out again. Okay, so let's see. Look at the scene. Okay, we have yeah, like these progress bar things on top of these counters. Yeah, progress bar UI. Oh, we don't actually add a well, we add a canvas. Okay, let's see. So we added this. So it's a world space canvas with all the, and then we just have a background and a bar. Okay. So that's just a small little script to look at the camera. Okay, I'm gonna drag this out of the way and let's see if we can do this again. Okay. So it's not quite like this, right? Or maybe it can be. Okay, so let's make this a prefab. And yeah, so we'll go into our prefabs. We call this one a UI, and then we can just create a new folder, world space UI, and we can just call this a, well, we call this a health bar. Okay, something like that. We can drag it in there, so it's a prefab. And then we can open the prefab. Now let's look at what we need to change here. So first of all, okay, so we got all this nonsense, which I'm not sure. If I'm doing any of this right. Oh wait, are we in debug mode? That's why everything looks so flippin' crazy. Okay. I think I'm doing this incorrectly. Okay, wait. Let's go back. Damn it. Let's get rid of this. Let's try again. Let's try again. Okay, so we get one of these totems. Let's open it up. Okay, so we just create an empty. Let's call it health bar UI. Okay, and we create a prefab of that. Okay, prefab mode in context. That seems good. Okay, so the first thing we need to add here is a canvas like that. So we say it's a world space. I don't think we need to change anything here. Yeah, this is fine. And then we have a canvas scaler, not the renderer. Remove canvas scaler. Okay, so UI scale mode, world dynamic. Okay, we'll just leave that. Graphic raycaster. Can't remember what that does. Graphic raycaster. Seems like we don't use it for anything. But anyway, so we get that. Okay, then we have scripts and yeah, a small look at camera script. So, okay, So let's go to our scripts and let's create 2 scripts. See if we can figure this out. So in UI, we can create a folder called this world space. Oh my word. Can I please just learn how to type? Okay. So this would be create, this is going to be the health bar UI. Right, and then we're going to also create another thing. This is going to be look at camera. Right, so those are the 2 scripts that we need. Okay. Okay, now I'm just going to copy this script for look at camera. So let's just see what it did, right? Okay, so we have look mode apparently. So we created a nice enum. Where we can do one of these, and then we just have cases, and we just change the look at. Okay, very good, copy paste all the way. Camera.main transfer. I don't know if that's gonna work. We'll see if that works. I hope it does. So we'll go to our this one, and we'll just do this. That's fine, right? It's my code from a tutorial. It's not cheating at all. This is allowed, right? Okay, but this is kind of nice. So late update. What the hell is late update? I forgot about this. Every frame, if the behavior is enabled. Oh, what does late update actually do? I mean, yeah, it's called at every frame. Is it like it's the last thing it does every update? Or it's just... it's probably the last thing, or it's maybe a less... Oh, it might be the last thing. Yeah, so that if the camera moved, the camera moves first, then this thing moves. Yeah. So it always moves after the camera has already moved. That makes kind of sense. Okay. So we can save that, and then this would be inside. So we get the health bar UI script. Oh, damn. I already had this. Whoopsie. Okay. So let's call this the world health bar UI. Save that. Okay, close this. Close this. And we'll update that as well. Yeah. Health bar UI was already used for my character. Let's just rename this to world health bar. Right, it's a health bar in the world, right? Makes sense. Okay, so we remove this component and we add the world health bar UI, and we add the look at camera. Okay, so then we have... Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Look at camera. Whatever. That's fine. Okay, now we need to figure out what to do with this script. So obviously we're going to need a couple of things. So some of the things we did was you add a background, which is just a panel, as far as I remember. And then we have a image on top of that. Right, so we just add UI panel. We call it the background. Don't know why this is so big. Okay, but it is a canvas renderer. It's got an image. Okay, that's okay. Yeah, it doesn't have to be anything special. Let's just change the color to like grayish or something. I don't know. Yeah, actually, we can make it like a black pair, I think. Let's just make it like 200 for now. We can always tweak this stuff later. Okay. Now, the only thing that's a bit strange to me is the sizing of this stuff. So how do you actually get this thing to not be massive? So I guess in here we have to change the width and the height to something like that. And then I have no idea how this or why this works, but anyway, let's put it up there. Okay, so if that is our health bar, let's put it at 9 exactly. Okay, so the background and stuff like that would obviously have sizes. So let's just go in here. Okay, so it's not going to be stretched, it's just going to be center. All right, and the width is going to be, I don't know, 3. Right. Yeah, 3 looks good. 1. Okay, that looks horrible. That's what it looks like. Why? Is it? Surely it's not this background. Oh, right, if you just don't have a sprite, it's perfect. Okay. Keep that in mind. Okay, so it's probably a bit too high. Alright, so yeah, 0.5 looks good. Okay, then we can add another UI element. We can just add an image on top of this and 0.5, I don't know. Let's make it 2.8. Or, no, let's make it the same size, right? I think. Now, can we add like an outline here? Add component. Outline. 0.2. 0.2. 0.02. Maybe. Yeah, that looks fine. And we just make it a black. Yeah, something like that. The outlines are weird. Ah, okay. Okay, so now it's a white. It's a white bar. Okay, obviously I can change the image color to be, you know, anything we want. Let's make it like an orange. I don't know. That looks kind of shit. Not gonna lie, that's a terrible idea. Okay, let's just make it green. So yeah, so if you look at this, we're gonna have a green thing with a bit of a background. This is too small now. I think we should make it a bit thicker. Alright, something like that. That looks like a health bar-ish, kinda, sorta, maybe. Okay, we'll just work with that. Right, and since I'm not in the mood to reinvent the wheel, let's just steal some code. Okay, there's a lot of complicated things here that I don't think I'm gonna do. First of all, we should just set the progress. Right, bar image dot fill amount. And we just change that to be equal to, yeah, whatever our health is, right? Yeah, and if we want to reuse this, we could use it. We could do it with a. Yeah, we could do it like that. That's obviously very, very fancy, but okay. So in here we can get a reference. Yeah, we need a reference to our bar, right? Which is just an image. Okay, so we do serialize field, private image. I guess it's Unity UI. Bar. Image. And we could do something like just call the bar image, or we could do at start. Let's think about this. Yeah, I should make it reusable, right? But just public update world health bar full, something like that. Public void for that matter. And what we're gonna need is something like a float max full and float current full. Oh, right, something like that. And then we can do bar image dot full amount equals. Now, I believe this should be a number between 0 and 1, right? Yeah, so we're just going to do a quick current full divided by max full. Right? Something like that. And at start, just do start. Start. We just do up. Dage. I just realized what I did there. Update world health bar full. Alright, just something like that. Very straightforward. So we get our health bar. We update the full by changing the full amount. Let's test it with like 0.5. Let's see if it goes to 0.5. We save. And I think what we have to do with the image. Okay, apparently we first have to do a save. Yeah, so let's just call it a bar. And I think we have to do a few things here. Okay, image source. I don't know if we need an image. Maybe we do. We just need a block of some kind. UI. Right, I'm not sure. No, that looks shit again. Let's just go away. I think, oh, you need an image to make it fillable. I guess. I'm guessing because I don't know. Okay, here we have just a square sprite, right? With border, just a square. Okay, so just a white square. Then we can make it fillable. Fold. And we can make it horizontal. Full origin is on the left. Look at that. Fantastic. Amazing. Fantabulous. Okay, we got a nice full amount. Okay, cool. So this should work if we call... Okay, so the health bar is now on top of that. And then the totem, the manager could just have a reference to the health bar. So we can just very simply do serialize field, private, world health bar UI. And, you know, whenever we get damaged, we can just say world health bar UI dot update, not that one. Health bar UI dot update world health bar full, and we need our current health, so building health and building max health. Okay, so we need something like a public float building max health, which is equal to 50. Righto. Max full and current full, so I did this backwards. Okay. There we go. So we just update that with our max health and our current health. It does a quick update. And that's it, right? That should work. Okay. We just need to drag everything into the places they want to be. So for instance, health bar UI, you go over there. And then inside my health bar UI, I think we also have a couple of things. It needs to get the bar image. Hello? Drag, please. There we go. Okay, and I think I've done it. Now, it's worse than what I did in the tutorial. But if it works, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Guys, it'll be okay. Okay, now they all have health bars. So let's just play and see what it looks like. The health bar might not disappear after I kill it, though. So, okay, so they have health bars. Their health bars are kind of looking at the camera, which is interesting. Okay. They're kind of working in backwards. Hey, but that works pretty well. Yeah, they're a bit backwards, but we'll figure that out now. We can reverse the full, obviously. Okay, so let's go check how we do that. So we can either reverse the full or the look at camera might be look at inverted, right? So we change that. And then we can also do on destroy. We could just have the manager also just hide the health bar, right? So we can do health bar UI dot game object dot set active false, right? Very straightforward stuff. Let's go have a look. And then I'll have to call it for today, because I need to get to work. Okay, so the health bars look at us. I don't know if I like that. Maybe I'll change that so they just face forward. Okay, but that is at least working, right? And they disappear when the thing gets killed. Yeah. That's pretty nice. Let's take the ranger. Wait, why is this? Oh, it's still disappearing. Yeah, now, and even though it still takes a while to kill the totem, at least you feel better about trying to kill it because you're like, you can see how you are progressing. Yeah, that makes a big difference. I don't mind not seeing enemy health, because obviously the enemies are should make that disappear faster, I think. Generally speaking, the enemies aren't that tough. Right, so I don't think we need 1,000 health bars for all the enemies on the game screen, right? I think this is okay. Anyway, people, thank you for hanging around. I think I'm gonna call it there. Well, I have to call it there. I need to get going. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. I will see you guys tomorrow if you want to come hang out. So, yeah, have a good one. Cheers, everybody.